Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, today let's take a look at every Premier League club and find one former player that your current manager has worked with in the past that he should look at signing this summer. But obviously, I have to make this realistic. So no, I'm not going to say that Ancelotti should ask Ronaldo if he wants to play for Everton. Be equivalent of asking him if he wants to spend an afternoon being mauled to death by wild hyenas. Alright, let's get into this. Arsenal John Stones. Now, this is a great start. What am I supposed to do with this one? This is Mikel Arteta's first management gig. The only former player he has is Konstantinos Mavropanos, and I'm pretty sure he'd get sick through the nose if you suggested re-signing him. But technically, Arteta was a manager at Man City just the once, filling in for the banned Pep Guardiola during a 2-1 Champions League defeat at home to Lyon. So of the players he managed that night, let's say John Stones. It's the only semi-realistic viable choice I can pick, and sure, he's yet another defensive headache born with zero concentration in his head, but still, it'd be a damn upgrade either way. Aston Villa, Jack O'Connell. Okay, let's be honest, Dean Smith is going to smother his Aston Villa squad with new recruits this summer, but I don't think there's many players at his former clubs that he'd be jumping to squeeze through the door. I don't want to be mean, but most footballers who seek employment at Walsall probably have the first touch of a paralysed panda. Sure, he spent 3 years at Brentford, but as we all know, they are the kings of consistently bottling promotion. So let's say Jack O'Connell. He's a 26-year-old scout centre-back stuck in a rock-solid Sheffield United defence who played under Smith at Brentford back in 2016. Let's not forget, this club conceded the second most goals in the league last season. John Terry being forced to coach the likes of Ezri Konsa and Courtney House. It's like expecting Lewis Hamilton to win an F1 rally whilst driving a cardboard box. Chris Wilder has admitted the Blades will sell any player for the right price. You might think O'Connell is too loyal for such a sideways move. Oh yeah, well his girlfriend has shown all the loyalty of a Geordie Shore housemate, signing for Everton, Liverpool, Man United and Man City. Let's hope her boyfriend also has the moral compass of a sponge. Brighton, Daniel James. Okay, I've trawled through the 8-year transfer history of Östersunds out in Sweden, and all I can conclude is that I'd rather adopt a family of orphans and chuck them on a football pitch than trust any of these jokers. Good lord, Ravel Morrison, Jamal Blackman, Brian Wake. I'm pretty sure revisiting any of them would be like Potter searching through the contents of his toilet. Let's go for his sole season in charge of Swansea City then, and Daniel James is the obvious answer. If Jadon Sancho winds up at Old Trafford, I'm pretty sure this 22-year-old speed merchant will be squeezed out the door on loan. Sure, at the moment his end product is on par with a broken lawnmower, but his pace alone, he'd be to this tiki-taka Brighton team what Pedro was to Barcelona. Burnley, Troy Deeney. Okay, I realise I recently predicted that Troy Deeney would never play a single minute of Premier League football again, but now I see he's been lined up by Jose Mourinho. Finally, concrete proof that the former Champions League winning coach has punctured his brain. Burnley is really the only club left in the top flight that would suit Deeney. Sean Dyche has worked with him before. Of course he has. Christ above, I wouldn't be surprised if he gave birth to him. They both linked up with Watford back in 2012, and yeah, Deeney is all elbows and teeth. Chuck this unconventional forward into this bruising Burnley team, he'd be pretty useful. Chelsea, Harry Wilson. Okay lads, I am really struggling for this one. Frank Lampard's only other job in management was Derby County through the 18-19 championship season, and let's be honest, all the good players he had then are now at Stamford Bridge. I'm not sure he's going to want to start ringing up Curtis Davies or Richard Keogh. I suppose the only suggestion I can make that wouldn't actively make him vomit is possibly Harry Wilson. Sure, Lampard probably loves Mason Mount more than his own kids, but it was Wilson who was the star of that Derby team, scoring 18 goals from the wing. No, he wouldn't start for Chelsea. No, they wouldn't need him, and yes, he'd spend the entire season stuffed on the bench, but he's the only footballer from that Derby team who wouldn't look out of his depth. Crystal Palace, Chris Smalling. Okay, Roy Hodgson has a management CV practically stretching back to the Ice Age. There's hundreds of footballers to choose from. I'm tempted to pick John Joe Shelby, who Hodgson brought to Anfield as a teenager in 2010. Now at 28, he'd fit perfectly into Palace's midfield. But no, instead let's say Chris Smalling. Let's be honest, this 30-year-old centre-back is a good defender when he wants to be. Sure, Phil Jones is a meme, but Smalling has over 320 games for Man United. He's just excelled out on loan with Roma. He's a pretty good mid-table footballer. Hodgson gave him his Premier League debut at Fulham back in 2009. He's currently out of favour at Old Trafford. Yeah, put him next to Gary Cahill in defence. It would make sense. Everton, THIAGO, ALCANTARA. Okay lads, going through Carlo Ancelotti's list of star-studded former players, I have to remind myself to keep this realistic. Sure, he'd probably tear out his left kidney to get Ronaldo in this team, or Robert Lewandowski, but lads, let's keep this realistic. And even with THIAGO, I'm still pushing it here. But why not? He's a 29-year-old Brazilian midfielder who is leaving Bayern Munich after 7 seasons. He's currently linked with Liverpool and PSG, but you know what? Everton have money and big ambitions. This would be a massive coup. In many ways it wouldn't make sense, but we've seen weirder transfers in the past. Leeds, MICHY, BATSHUAYI. Again, when looking at Marcelo Bielsa's former players, I have to remember to keep this realistic. There's no point tipping Florian Thauvin or Ander Herrera to sign up for relegation scrap in the north of England. BATSHUAYI though, who scored 10 goals under Bielsa at Marseille, clearly he must be looking for a job opportunity better than Chelsea's bench. Let's just say I'd rather rely on a 26-year-old BATSHUAYI far more than I would a 26-year-old Patrick Bamford, who's only ever scored once in the Premier League. And he's been at 5 different clubs. Leicester, Philippe Coutinho. Again, this is verging on the edge of madness, but hey, don't blame me. Philippe Coutinho's been linked with Leicester City in the media. If the Brazilian, who thought he was too good for this Liverpool team, if he really is forced to return to England to play on the same team as Marco Albright and Yossi Perez, he's gonna feel like ripping off his nutsack. The only thing swaying him might be that he almost won the league under Brendan Rodgers in a fairly average Liverpool team. This guy probably just wants to enjoy his football again after 3 years in the wilderness. Put him in midfield, Yori Tielemans and James James Maddison, and this Leicester team would be a genuine top 4 threat. Liverpool, Danny Ings. Okay lads, I'm struggling here, I really am. Sure, Jurgen Klopp would probably love to work with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang again, but good luck convincing Arsenal to sell. I'll go with Danny Ings, why not? Clearly, Jurgen Klopp didn't really rate him, putting Dominic Solanke on the bench for a Champions League final ahead of him, while leaving Ings to rot in the stands. What an insult. But he might be pleasantly surprised by the fact that Danny Ings has just outscored every single one of his players. I'm not saying he'd start, but having a 20-goal-a-season striker warming the bench and pushing the main man up front, well, it works for Man City. Man City, Kingsley Coman. Okay, there aren't too many footballers on the planet who could improve this current Man City team. I mean, of course, Pep Guardiola would probably drink the bathwater of a dog to get Messi, but clearly that one isn't happening. Let's say Kingsley Coman. City are suddenly quite light on the wings now that Leroy Sané is gone. Apparently, Kingsley Coman is up for grabs at Bayern Munich. He'd be a decent option off the bench. Man United, Wilfried Zaha. Okay lads, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I don't know much to work with. A failed year at Cardiff and a bunch of seasons in Norway with mould. Had Erling Haaland not just signed for Borussia Dortmund instead, of course I'd be picking him, but spending £200 million to get him out of his contract when you've got a perfectly good Mason Greenwood, it seems like the work of a drunk accountant. I'm not even fully convinced on this one myself, but Ole did get relegated with Wilfried Zaha on loan to Cardiff City. Sure, he's 27, would cost way too much money and just scored 18 goals less than Anthony Martial, but who else am I going to pick? Cameron Jones? Newcastle, Jake Livermore. Okay, well, offering Steve Bruce the opportunity to sign Andy Robertson at left back after working with him at Hull City, he'd probably rip off your arm. But again, lads, realism here. Sure, they might be friends, but the day a current European and Premier League champion swaps Glory and Mills for Newcastle is the day I shove my balls in a toaster. Let's say Jake Livermore. Sure, he's 30 and let's be honest, probably championship standard, but with the club set to lose Matty Longstaff and the eternally useless Nabil Bentaleb, he'd be a decent squad option, I guess. Sheffield United, David Brooks. Oh, how the tables have turned. Remember when David Brooks swapped Sheffield United for Bournemouth in 2018 as some sort of ambitious move for his career? Now he'd probably burn his house to the ground if it guaranteed a move back to Bramall Lane. Again, he might have a higher quality and potential suitor than this, but Wilder might as well try his luck with a £25 million bid. He's a talented midfielder. Southampton, Ademola Lookman. Let's see, a realistic signing. I suppose we could go for Ademola Lookman. Ralph Hasenhüttl had the winger on loan at RB Leipzig 4 years ago. He's 22, pacey with an eye for goal, currently can't get a look in out in Germany. Lookman to Southampton is a rumour that won't go away, but probably because it makes damn good sense. Tottenham, Memphis Depay. Okay lads, controversial one. Of all the players Jose Mourinho has worked with, I'm picking the £20 million flop that he binned off to France less than 6 months into the Man United job. Well lads, if you remember, yes, Mourinho sold Depay to Lyon, but he also spoke highly of him and never ruled out the possibility of buying him back. Depay might have one of the most punchable faces on planet Earth and with an ego bigger than a jumbo jet, but he's too good for French football. He's skillful, a threat from the wing. Chuck Depay in the Spurs team, he'd be an upgrade in Eric Lamela at the least. West Brom, Dimitri Payet. Okay, there's a good chance Slaven Bilic would rather shove a telephone pole down his throat than ever work with the annoyingly high maintenance Dimitri Payet ever again. Christ, this guy was just one big headache at West Ham. But when he was on form, he was one of the best footballers in the country. It's 3 years since he returned to Marseille, but he's already left once for England, so why not again? And he might be 33, but don't get it wrong, he'd be West Brom's best player by quite a distance. West Ham, Shane Duffy. Okay, some of the MLS fans might be convinced that David Moyes would be frothing at the mouth to work with Carlos Vela one more time, having had him at Real Sociedad. Yeah, not so much. West Ham have been linked with the out-of-favour Shane Duffy, who Moyes brought through Everton. No, he doesn't suit Graham Potter's passing style, but he's your typical no-nonsense 28-year-old bottom-tier Premier League centre-back. West Ham could do a lot worse. Wolves, Alex Telles. Okay, this one might seem massively ambitious because Alex Telles has been linked with Chelsea for 5 goddamn years, but I think it might be time to admit that one isn't going to happen. He's a top-quality left-back, sure, but he turns 28 this year. Does he really want to hang out at FC Porto for a 5th season, just waiting for the phone call from Stamford Bridge? Just face it, lads, it's not going to happen. Just follow Nuno Espirito Santo to Wolves, challenge Matt Doherty for a place on the side. It'll be a good move for all parties. Alright, that's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree, if you agree, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.